very meaningful to see all of those things that we're fundraising for and investing philanthropic dollars come to fruition, like in front of your eyes.
Welcome to the EverTrue Innovators podcast, where we meet the innovative voices behind the ideas moving fundraising forward.
Ahoy, and welcome to the Innovators podcast by EverTrue. I'm Madeline Turner, here with my shipmates on the SS EverTrue, Keith and Hannah.
I see what you did there.
I think this next one really highlights the complexity of fundraising at scale, especially when your audience is as unique as Naval Academy alumni.
Yeah, you're talking about a group that's incredibly connected, but also spread all over the world.
And with very high expectations for communication.
Exactly. And the Naval Academy Foundation built a strategy that balanced personalization with that level of scale.
Which is not easy to do.
Let's hear from the Naval Academy Foundation, winners of the Field Fundraising Innovation Award.
The Naval Academy Foundation is the fundraising arm of the United States Naval Academy. So it is our job to support the mission of the Naval Academy to develop midshipmen morally, mentally, and physically. I've been with the team a little over, coming up on 9 years. So August will be 9 years for me. And I have held a variety of roles as a frontline fundraiser throughout those 9 years. And then this past October, stepped into the AVP role. So now I oversee all of our frontline fundraisers, including major gift officers, leadership annual giving, planned giving, and corporation and foundation support.
Wow. So fiscal year 25 was a record-breaking year for the Naval Academy Foundation. I think it was the first ever $100 million fundraising year. So first of all, congratulations. But when you reflect on that, what do you think made that possible? Where was there a moment where the team felt a momentum shift? Talk to us about it.
Sure. So I think that, and this is probably a very boring answer, but I think it is a very true answer. One thing that we really pride ourselves on is consistency. And I think that consistency made that year possible. And that is consistency in how we engage with our individual supporters, consistency in how our team works together on a weekly basis, and then consistency in metrics, which I know we'll dig into in a little bit. But we were very fortunate to have 2 8-figure gifts come in last year that obviously helped push us very close to that kind of finish line. But simultaneously, we were launching a true leadership annual giving program, and the consistency of those individuals also just kind of blew all of our early projections out of the water. And so between the big 8-figure major, not major principal gifts, and the just great work of our leadership annual giving colleagues, we were able to push across that $100 million threshold for the organization. And one of the individuals that made one of those 8-figure gifts was somebody that started at the base level of our donor giving society when he was able to many years ago, and through consistent outreach and consistent stewardship and consistent relationship management, he made a $15 million gift last year.
Wow.
And it supported a number of important initiatives for the foundation and for the Naval Academy. But he would have never chosen Navy for his first $15 million gift had it not been for the many years of consistent hard work that our leadership put into cultivating that relationship.
That's incredible.
Yeah. That's, I feel like, the epitome of like what you're hoping happens anytime that you are stewarding someone that's a lower level donor and keeping them engaged year over year to eventually cultivate that relationship. And so I guess thinking about that sort of growth, both in donors, but then also just in your team overall, you now have, I believe, more staff and more activity, but with that, there is kind of that higher expectation that's kind of set. So if you were to kind of talk about what the most challenging part or hardest part about the operational side of things, what would you say that that would be?
Consistency. We've been very lucky to grow pretty quickly in the past few years. So as I said, I've been on the team since 2017. I started as a major gift officer. That was our titles back then. We have grown the team now, and our regional development team. So our regional directors they're not your standard major gift officer. So we've grown the team a lot in the past couple of years. As I said, I joined the team in 2017 as a major gift officer, and we now have 11 individuals that manage one-on-one relationships. So we have regional directors, assistant regional directors, and associate regional directors. And to keep consistency across all of those teammates, as well as our plan giving program, as well as our corporate and foundation relation program, can be a challenge, right? We want people to feel like they have the autonomy to do their job in the way that works for them, but we also have really big goals to manage and to meet and hopefully exceed. So figuring out how to take what started as like a really small, tight-knit group of fundraisers, grow it in a really wonderful way, but how to not lose that feeling of connectivity as a team while also expanding expectations and the people management side of things like that. I think that is a challenge for everybody. And there are shops that are 10 times our size and would look at us and be like, oh my gosh, you guys got like what? But we've grown a lot in 3 years. So going from, that team of 5 to 8 to now nearly 20 people, um, you know, comes with those growing pains, but we're figuring it out as we go along and trying to kind of return to the things that we know that work and then figuring out what that means for our team in this new structure.
Uh, One of the things about consistency is that there has to be clarity, specifically like what does good look like. So I'd be curious to hear what a good week looks like for your team right now. If you had to describe that, defining that consistency, how are metrics getting reviewed? How are fundraisers using Signal day to day? Paint that picture for us.
Sure. So every Friday, our whole leadership, as well as our entire development team, get an email that one of our coordinators puts together that like shows what's going to happen the week coming up in terms of meetings and who's on the road, who's meeting with who. And I love to get that email on Fridays and see like the entire team's name because it puts the gift officer, it puts the donor, it puts where in the country they're going to be, and it puts the goal of the meeting. And whenever that is like a really diverse, big list of opportunities, like that means I know that next week is going to be exciting and productive and something good's going to happen. And so I think that a good week for us means that we have people on the road, we have our leadership annual giving team, um, you know, hitting the phones or having local meetings. They don't travel as much as our regional directors do. We have activity on the yard. That's what we call our campus, the yard. So we're hosting people here in Annapolis. And that just means that we're not sitting behind our desks all day, every day. So I love to see that. I think when it comes to how we track and build that activity, our team utilizes Launchpad very closely and trip planning closely. So I meet with my 5 direct reports on a weekly basis. They meet with their direct reports on a bi-weekly basis, and then their teams meet on the off weeks. But we talk about metrics and activity in every single one of those meetings. And so looking at who's going to be where, when they're going to be doing things, what that looks like. And then I would say that our gift officers probably don't use Signal as much as our managers and our research and prospect management team do. We're really the ones that are utilizing Signal to drive those conversations. So, if I'm in a conversation with one of my team leads, I can pull up Signal for one of their employees and say, hey, like, what's going on here? What does that look like? What do we need to do? Or this looks great. This is fabulous. Like, make sure you say something that they know we notice. Um, and then our research and prospect management team utilize a lot of that data to drive conversation in our quarterly portfolio reviews. So we have standing quarterly portfolio reviews for every single person that manages a portfolio. We go through the activity or, the one thing that I love about Signal is showing like where somebody is on their like score and then like what the communication and activity is and those individuals that maybe are falling through the cracks and that's really helped us ensure that gift officers aren't just reaching out to somebody like one or two times. So we look at data on a pretty regular basis. And so we have statistics that say we know, especially for a new gift officer, it takes a minimum of 6 meeting requests to get that first meeting. So if in a portfolio review, somebody's like, they're unresponsive, we can kick them out. And I pull up the data and I'm like, but you've only reached out to them twice.
You got to do that 4 more times.
You
Yeah.
gotta put a little more effort in here. And then what we can also look at is how is is our outreach effective? So one of the things we look at is how much outreach drives an actual meeting, especially for discovery. And so if I see that somebody is just blasting out hundreds of emails, but their meeting count is lower or not as high as other teammates, I can say, okay, well, let's look at your email. Like what can we do to improve that? Or and we know that people don't love this, but pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Have you given somebody from the class of 1965 a phone call versus spamming their inbox? Are we reaching people where they are and figuring out how to best get in touch with them? And the great thing my last kind of point on this is the great thing that I will say is that our team looks at what works and kind of figures out what to count as we grow and adjust. And so a couple years ago, somebody came to the team and was like, I've been reaching out on LinkedIn and I'm getting a lot of meetings. Like, I don't know how to put that in the system. And so now we have like a social media outreach button. And so we want to make sure that we're recognizing good and productive work. We don't want to just count things just to count them.
I feel like that's also just huge as the world that we live in evolves and how people prefer to be communicated with evolves generationally or just as new technology comes out or different trends of LinkedIn having its kind of like renaissance in the last 5-10 years. I feel like that's just it's really important to just keep your eye on the ball there of what should we be counting and how. On the topic of kind of consistent outreach, cadences were a very big part of your early success. So cadence-based outreach. How would you say that your team's relationship with cadences has evolved over the last several years? Are people still using them the same way? Or, in the spirit of evolution, what's kind of changed, I guess?
Sure. So cadences have been a really important part of our leadership annual giving program as we stood it up. So we have individuals on our team that are at the assistant regional director level, And those folks are kind of at the for us a leadership annual gift kind of falls between $5,000 and $25,000, and so they carry larger portfolios. It helps them manage and scale, because one of the things we wanted to try and figure out how to do is how do we scale the individual relationships that a regional director has with a major or principal gift donor or prospective donor, and scale that to this very important community that will help us reach our goals, and the Naval Academy's needs, without making it feel too much like a calling program, or feeling too salesy. Like one of the things that we're a little hypersensitive to is ensuring that our alumni don't feel like it's a sales or a transactional relationship. We want it to feel very authentic and meaningful, because everybody, no matter what size gift they're making, is making an investment in a mission that's important to them. And so we want them to feel the impact of their investment in the mission. And Cadence is really like allowed our team in early days to manage through that process. And so our individuals who set those cadences up and adopted them early on, again, far exceeded the expectations that we set for those individuals. So when we bring on a new assistant director, the folks that we brought on, they were able to exceed their annual goals fourfold. So we had leadership annual giving officers bringing in $1 million in their first year through consistent outreach, good work, um, good stewardship, and still manage a portfolio of 250-ish people. And that is not an expectation that we put on a new gift officer normally. Now, we're looking at what those early day expectations need to be, because we've seen it be successful. That being said, I do think that our use of them have evolved a tiny bit, as they should. So our gift officers are utilizing our leadership annual giving gift officers are utilizing them still to like manage through their portfolio, ensure that they're doing solicitations in a timely manner, ensure that they're getting through their portfolio. But now our regional directors who are working with our major and principal gifts, they are utilizing cadences in a more meaningful way to manage the engagement with their top 30 prospects in their portfolios. So whether that's a solicitation or just really good stewardship work, they are kind of individualizing those cadences for those people based on where they are in the giving cycle. And that's been very helpful. So again, myself, our management team, like we can go in and talk to somebody on a one-on-one basis and say, okay, where are we with this, 7-figure solicitation? Has the proposal gone out? Have we gotten a response? What kind of follow-up are we doing? And we're still a small enough team that we can kind of get in the weeds together. And we're also a very collaborative team. So especially if somebody is working on a 7-figure ask, myself, our EVP, our CEO many times are involved. And so it helps us all be on the same page.
You've been thoughtful about not claiming that you're fully sustaining $100 million model yet, and that it's something you're still building towards. What would durable, sustainable success actually look like to you this year or following years?
So we are in the middle of we're still in the quiet phase of a comprehensive campaign to support the Naval Academy. And that for like hitting that goal last year, well, we exceeded the actual goal, but to hit 100 million was a really exciting milestone for the organization. And now our goal annually will continue to increase a little bit to ensure that we hit this much larger campaign goal that we're, still branding and haven't totally rolled out everything yet. So it is really exciting, and it was really special to be a part of it. And it's as with many institutions, like it is tangible to see at the institution that I work with. So it's very meaningful to see all of those things that we're fundraising for and investing philanthropic dollars come to fruition, like in front of your eyes. I think what again, like boring answer, but like we just need to keep doing the good work that we're doing, right? We need to keep looking at what we're doing and how we're doing it and making sure it works for the community that we're working with. We need to be thoughtful about our approach, but the basics, and this is, I wish I had this much consistency in my personal life as I do in my professional life. I'd be an ultra marathoner or something, but the basics aren't new or it's not rocket science. But good relationships take time and energy and attention. And if we just keep doing those basics really well, we will continue to to get where we need to get. And I know that's not like the most innovative answer as an EverTrue innovator, but I do think it's the most real answer.
I love it. And you said that, and a piece of advice I got one time was that if you want to have good friends, you have to be a good friend. Relationships aren't like it's not always easy. Like building relationships takes work, but it's not complicated.
Mhm.
And sometimes I do think that this we try to over engineer when like the basics are always true. Um, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
I guess in the spirit of advice to kind of wrap this up and bring us home, if AJ, if someone's listening right now and they're a couple years behind where you are all at, and they're just starting to implement more metrics, they're taking a more metrics driven approach, what is one thing that you'd tell them or a piece of advice that you'd want to share with them?
Sure. So I think as with any and I've thought a lot about this particular part of our conversation. I think that with any habit, if you will, and our team does a lot of professional development work and investing. And so a couple years ago, we read James Clear's Atomic Habits. With any habit, start small, and he calls it laughably small. So instead of saying, like, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week and set this crazy goal and like I'm going to lose 500 pounds or whatever it is, um, his recommendation is start with, I'm going to put on my gym clothes every day. And then once you're in the gym clothes, like, I mean, well, now with athleisure, like you might just lay in your bed, but you also might get motivated to go to the gym. I think that sometimes with shops especially who are small and aren't sure where to start, it seems like such a big mountain to climb. And I think it's just start with what is the most important thing to count for your organization. So is that dollars? Is that activity? Whatever that means, start with counting one thing and count it on a weekly basis for the first couple of weeks or months. And then look at like, is this information actually helpful to me? Can we actually do something with this? And if the answer is yes, then keep counting it. And in a couple of weeks say, okay, what else should we count? What are we learning? And how can we evolve and do this basic thing in a way that is meaningful for us? Because if you're just counting metrics to count metrics or looking at metrics because the world talks about metrics and KPIs and OKRs and all of these other acronyms, then and it doesn't feel meaningful and you don't have buy-in from your team and they don't understand why you're looking at it, then it probably isn't going to be meaningful, and people are going to feel like you are big brother, and it's not going to drive any real activity. But if you have the conversation with your teammates, and no matter again how big or small that team is, and they understand what the purpose of this is, and they then hear from you, or they hear from their manager, or they hear from the organization about the importance of that data, or that, that metric, then they can use that information to adjust how they work. So I think the best example again is back to that metric, or that data point of 6 phone calls or 6 outreaches to secure a meeting for a new gift officer here. We use that data point a lot because, number one, especially as a new person, in a fundraising role, or especially at the leadership annual giving level, it can feel like a little bit of a grind sometimes to to leave, 20 voice messages in a day, or however many that you're trying to get through, and to like have that kind of goal to say, okay, maybe by the fifth or sixth one, the person will respond, or, oh, I got it by the third one. Like, what did I do? And let me try that with somebody else. And now I know I can get a meeting a little bit faster if I try it this way. Or, um, it gives people the tools to do their job in a way that makes them successful. And if they're successful, then obviously the organization will be successful.
I love that the mutual understanding of why it's important, I think is such a strong foundation to build off of.
Yeah, again, Simon Sinek, if you're not a Simon Sinek fan, start with why. That
Mm.
was one of the first books I read when I came to the Naval Academy, and we talk about Simon a lot. So whether it's start with why and talking about the why of the mission with a donor or with a teammate, I think is super important. But also he talks a lot about consistency. If you haven't seen his Flywheel uh, TED Talk, I highly recommend that too. That's when we think about consistency, and in terms of relationship building and being a good friend, it's that whole flywheel metaphor. And again, it's not rocket science, but it is just good relationship building work.
Thank you so much for sharing this story, and congratulations on the success that you've seen thus far. And we look forward to continuing to hear how the consistency pays off. And we'll talk with you soon.